Good evening, everybody, and welcome to What's Brewing with Mobile Cup of Joe and guests. I am your bearded barista, Alvie, and here joining us as usual is Chuck, Fred, Joe, and Tony. Welcome. We are so glad that you're here and joining us for a very special edition. I'm in my pajamas, or my PJs, or whatever you want to call them. I'm here ready because we have a special roundtable just for you. Your phone is like a bed, so we'll get to that in just a minute. We've got our normal headlines and normal stuff to go through real quick, but we do have a very special roundtable. So we're glad that you decided to join us this week. We do have a giveaway this week. We have three, count them, three OnePlus One invites. So here's how you do it. In the Q&A down below or in the YouTube comment section, go ahead and say, I want an invite. Now, we'll pick a name or three at the end of the show and then try to get you those OnePlus One invites as soon as we can. So once again, a round table. Get in your pajamas, grab a cup of Joe, and sit back and let's do this thing. So, guys, let's jump into it. We got to get moving. Chuck, Fred, what's brewing?
Well, we had a number of things this week. I guess, the one that I will kick off with because it's the most interesting to me. I think I'm the only Verizon person here. Is the Droid Turbo leaks that we've seen this week?
Yes.
So I'm super excited. I bought the Moto X about a week ago. It's actually going back to the Verizon store next week after these leaks. The Moto X, the Moto X is a great phone. Its build quality is awesome. The stock software is great. Motorola knows how to put just the right amount of software on top of stock Android to make it really cool. But like I suspected, battery life for the average user is probably great. It's awesome. Battery life for me, I'm a pretty heavy user. I was about 2 or 3% most evenings going to bed, which is cutting it a little bit close to me, and I found myself actually saying, do I really want to stream that video? Do I really want to look at that on my phone? And if I have to do that on my phone, I got to take the phone back. I can't be, I want to do whatever I want on my phone and not worry about it. So I'm back to the M8 until a turbo. But to the turbo, so what have we seen so far? Supposedly a 5.2-inch Quad HD, Snapdragon 805, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gig internal storage. All the software the Moto X has is what I'm seeing. So the touchless, the active display, even the waving to dismiss. From the user manual that was leaked this week, looks like it has all of that. And the big kicker, supposedly a 3,900 milliamp hour battery.
How's that compared to other phones? Is that big?
That's huge. So for comparison, the Moto X has a 2300. The HTC One M8 has a 2600. The OnePlus has a 3100. Okay, and the Note 4 has a 3200.
Oh wow! So you're a quarter or half more battery. Okay.
Yeah. So being the only Verizon user, I'm probably the only one who's excited. But it looks like Verizon is finally going to have an exclusive phone that's worthwhile. Now, they are having another exclusive that came out this week, and Alvie, I know you're pretty excited about the Z3 in general, but Verizon is getting their own version of the Z3, the Z3V, I think they're calling it.
Yes.
So it looks like Verizon users are actually going to have some choices of some pretty decent phones come the end of the month here, with the Note 4, the Turbo, and the Z3 all by the end of the month.
And they need to. I know we rib on Verizon a bunch, but there's a lot of users out there in Verizon world, and they need something better than just generic stock phones. So, no, it's good. I'm glad that they're finally getting some really good stuff out there. Any chance of those, I know the Z3 will, but like the Droid Turbo or anything else getting rebranded and coming somewhere else, or is these going to be straight up Verizon exclusives? What do you think?
Well, supposedly a phone that is similar to the Droid Turbo has gone through the FCC. It's a 5.2-inch screen, so it's not the supposed Nexus 6, and it had the right GSM bands for AT&T. So I think there was some small discrepancies. It might not have had some of the touchless or something, but we might see a rebranded version on something like AT&T.
Cool. Just curious. All right, so Chuck's bringing the ones and zeros. Fred, back from the dead. Fred, talk to me about HTC. They had some press release this week. Talk to me.
Okay, HTC. Unfortunately, I did not attend their event in New York City, but a couple of things came out of the HTC event, and I think what we want to talk about is the HTC Eye, which is the new incarnation of photos on HTC phones, and then the HTC Re. I guess they're calling it Re. It's not RE, is it? I assume
No,
it's
Well, I actually got an email from my AT&T contact saying it's pronounced RE.
really?
So-
It's pronounced
Everybody's saying
RE.
okay, good
It's
to know.
spelled Re, but it's pronounced RE. But here we go, and this is actually a standalone camera. So they're actually spinning off the camera as its own device, and it's an odd-looking device. It kind of looks like a periscope that you'd see coming up out of a submarine or something. I don't know if we can get a picture up there somewhere, but it's an odd-looking device, and the marketing ploy is that it lets you take pictures on the fly while living in the moment. So I guess the unwritten assumption there is that you don't have to be sitting with your head buried in your smartphone to be able to snap a picture. This is a camera that you can whip out and take a high-quality picture. It's got a fairly high price point for what kind of looks like an accessory at about $200. So it's not going to be an impulse buy for too many people, and it's not a phone, so people are not going to be getting it on contract that I know of.
Well, let's just go ahead and talk about the white elephant in the room. This thing is marketed for the GoPro. They're going straight after them. GoPro, let me catch everybody up, it's a rugged, extreme camera. It's very small. It's very tiny. It goes in a waterproof, ruggedized case, and you can put it and attach it anywhere. And this thing is basically everywhere you go in extreme sports world. This is aimed right at them. It's waterproof. It's got, it's its own thing. Here's the thing. GoPro is everywhere, and everybody, if you talk about taking extreme pictures or video, it's GoPro. HTC has a long way to go to get to that point. GoPro also this week announced a $140 entry-level GoPro. Honestly, HTC's got no chance. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't think that's too far of a stretch, but there's no way that HTC can, I don't think, climb over this GoPro mountain. I don't know. Am I wrong?
I disagree with you.
Do you?
Yeah. So I actually don't think HTC. I actually watched the announcement, live. I actually don't think they were targeting it towards GoPro. I think I think they are to a certain extent. But
Right.
where I really think they're talking about, where they're really targeting, is kind of parents and things here, where. Let's say you're watching your son's basketball game, and that's actually the example that the HTC president gave. Was he basically just slipped it on his shirt here, watched the game, recorded the whole game, which is going to see what he's seeing, and then worried about what it actually captured later. It's got a super wide angle lens, so it's really kind of designed to set and forget almost. You attach it to your and I know the GoPro is very similar. Attach it to your backpack or whatever, let it record, do its thing. And go with it. And I think one of the coolest features of it though is remote viewing of it on your phone. So what they basically said is you'll be able to use your phone because it doesn't have a viewfinder. There is no viewfinder on it. You can't see what's going on, but you'll use your phone as the viewfinder.
Well,
yeah, I gotta agree.
To me, that's what's cool about the GoPro too, and I'll go to bat for GoPro because I enjoy it. I love mine. I mean, they don't need me to defend them. They're winning. They're the only people out there right now. But there's no viewfinder on mine either. Now the high levels do, and you can't add the attachment. What's really cool, because I work with students, so I just give it to them and say go for it, because they basically can't break it, can't drown it, and then see what I get. It's really cool because basically you got an idea of how to hold it. The view is very wide on it, so if you get close enough, you're going to get something decent out of it. And then, it's kind of like the old get your film developed days where you take the pictures or video and then see later what it is. It's a cool market. It's something cool, and I think more people need to be in there. But this periscope from HTC ain't it.
I just want to kind of hop in real quick and say I kind of agree with Chuck on the whole it's not competing with the GoPro thing, because I was watching it, and actually AT&T, they're going to carry both the Desire Eye and the RE whenever they do come out. But I do agree with Chuck though how it is like, well, the HTC called it moisture resistant. It's not really IP certified from what I saw, but it looks like it's got some durability to it. They said you can take it underwater and do some filming or picture taking down there, but it doesn't look like it offers, or it obviously doesn't offer that same level of durability that a GoPro does. So I think kind of like what Chuck was saying, it's meant more for families or just if you're out walking through the town, want to snap a quick picture. And it does look kind of ridiculous, and $200 is quite a lot of money to ask for a 60 megapixel camera that looks like an inhaler. But I do think that that is something I would be kind of interested in testing out, because I know that phones haven't gotten so easy. If you saw the Moto X where you can just shake it to open up your camera, or on the OnePlus One you can just draw a circle and your camera opens that way too.
Yeah.
But having a separate device just to take out, snap a button, take a picture, I am interested to see kind of how much simpler that makes it. Just pulling out a separate device and taking a picture than it is setting up one with your phone. So I'm not saying I'm totally convinced on this yet. I'm still kind of hesitant of the product itself, but I am really interested in toying around with it and kind of getting my kind of hands-on experience with it soon.
Yeah, well, and really it just goes back, this inhaler, this periscope thing, that ain't it. If you want it to be what they're trying to say, or what you guys are saying, like for families, it needs to blend in with my coat or my pajamas, or it doesn't need.
Then it needs to be wearable. At that point, it needs to be wearable.
It's not quite wearable, but they do have attachments to, say, attach it to even your kid's bicycle. So that's something you're not going to do with your Moto X, whereas you might take this and stick it in this little thing that looks like a cup holder that's going to clip on your kid's bicycle, and either film their face as they're riding, or film get a motion shot of the tour that they're taking, or some such thing, which you're not going to do with your phone, even if it's easier to use.
Yeah.
Now, aside from 16 megapixels, what does this device have? I'm just kind of trying to sniff it out right now in terms of
it's a 1080p
battery.
camera. So I think the big thing really is the video recording. I don't actually think people are going to use it as a camera. I mean, yeah, it has a 60 megapixel camera, but I think really what people are going to use it for is the video recording. You basically just start the video recording and just let it go. Wear it, put it on the bike, do whatever you want. I kind of really see that's where things are going to take off with it. I didn't see what the battery is, but they do have spare batteries. They have a ton of accessories for it. I looked on the site. There was a ton of accessories there, and it's different colors. One thing that was really interesting to me, though, and I said this before, like I said, I watched the announcement, and this isn't specifically about the camera itself, but more about the announcement itself. And if I would have flashed back 2 years ago, I would have sworn that was Steve Jobs on stage, showing people why they needed the iPhone. And I'm not kidding. If anyone hasn't watched the announcement, go watch it and tell me afterwards you didn't see Steve Jobs on stage trying to sell people something. I don't even care about the camera, and he had me convinced I wanted to go out and buy one.
Not to stay on the subject too long, but we did get a question from Cooper Lee.
Yes.
He asked, why are carriers promoting the HTC RE? He said there's no host from T-Mobile that mentioned it, and AT&T's talking about the RE as well, so he wants to know why carriers are involved with it. And we kind of saw with carriers, it's always been about smartphones and tablets, but we've seen them kind of branching out into these accessories too, with the smartwatches. Most recently, AT&T carried the Pebble and the LG G Watch and the Martian smartwatches. I think the Martian Notifier is one of them. So it's a way for HTC to make money. It's no secret that they haven't been doing that great when it comes to sales for the past couple of years, really. They've had solid phones, but their sales aren't good. So it's a way for them to make money, and we're seeing these smartphone carriers, AT&T, T-Mobile, all the like. Smartphones are still going to be their bread and butter, but they do need to start branching out to these smart accessories and wearables now if they're still going to stay relevant with where the market's going. So that's just my thought on the whole thing, if you guys have any additional ones.
Yeah, well, Verizon has the, the smart stores that they've started rolling out. So I think you're right.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example, because I visited one of those over the summer in June, I think, and yeah, their big push, they've got the smartphones, they've got the whole section in the back, but scattered throughout really the main entrance of the store are Garmin, what is it? I'm losing my train of thought now, but they've got Fitbits there. They have the Hue Philips light bulbs that change color. They've got Art AC drones. They've got Beats. They've got Bose speakers. I mean, all these different accessories that you can use with smartphones. So I think it's a way they're going to make more money from these people. Are going to buy a smartphone. They're going to say, hey, I want to track my steps with this. I want to have a smartwatch. I want to get solid audio when I'm listening to music on my phone. So it makes them more money, and it gives their consumers more options for accessories. So I just kind of think we're going to see more accessories and smartwatches and different smart accessories. The carriers.
Yeah, I think that's wise, especially as many people like us. That's going to be more the norm. They're going to go find an unlocked phone somewhere else and bring it to us. So no, I think there's wisdom there. All right, let me move off of HTC real quick because I really want to get to my bed because I'm in my pajamas. My phone is like a bed, and I don't mean my Sony Xperia Z Ultra 6.4 that looks like a bed. It's as big as a bed. But I do want to talk real quick because probably this coming week, Shamu is going to get so real quick, some rumors and all that kind of stuff. I don't like to talk about leaks and rumors too much, but this is one of the big ones. It's Google's baby, the Nexus stuff. So real quick, Fred, or really anybody that wants to jump in, Fred and Chuck and all those guys, just jump in. What's going on with the HTC Nexus 9 and with whatever the Nexus 6 may or may not be?
Well,
you can go ahead. I was looking online today. The HTC Nexus 9, there's been a ton of leaked specs for this device really just earlier today. The biggest stuff so far we got today, it's supposedly going to have an 8.9-inch display. No word on resolution, but I'm guessing we're going to maybe see Ultra HD with that. 2 gigs of RAM, which Tony isn't going to be too happy with. 16 or 32 gigs of internal storage. And $399 price point, and supposedly an October 15th announcement, which I believe is next Wednesday. So if the HTC Nexus 9 is going to be announced next Wednesday, I'm pretty sure we can make a safe bet that we can see Nexus 6 sometime next week too. Now, granted, these are still rumors, but from where all the rumors have been pointing, it should be sometime next week. We can probably expect an announcement.
Well, if you remember last year,
16th too, right?
Sorry.
iPad Day is the 16th, right? And that when they're supposed to be announcing the new iPad stuff?
Yes, October 16th.
Yeah, that's when Apple's done there. And if you remember last year, too, was it the Nexus 5 and Android whatever, was just kind of released someday. Google said, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of fanfare to it. So maybe we'll see the same thing again this year. Here's our tablets. Here's the next version of, Android. Cool.
Yeah. Well, if the Nexus 9 really only has 2 gigs of RAM, I could totally see no one making a big deal out of it. And honestly, here's the thing. I would have to blame HTC. I know you guys make fun of me for that. That's true. I'm sorry that first of all, none of the flagship tablets out right now have only 2. The Sony and all the Samsungs have gone up to 3 with their high-end tablets.
No, I have to agree with you, Tony, especially for a tablet that's 9 inches with Quad HD, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. If it's Quad HD, I can't see it having only 2. There's any Quad HD devices out with only 2 gigs of RAM. All the Quad HD devices have 3 gigs of RAM, and this is running a Tegra K1. If it's running a Tegra K1, I'll be a little bit disappointed, actually, but I don't know if the Tegra K1 can how it would do Quad HD, but I also don't think there's any Tegra K1 devices out with only 3 gigs of RAM. Or with only 2 gigs of RAM.
Are there even any out at all?
One's the development platform, and one is, I think, the NVIDIA.
Oh, the Shield?
Shield tablet.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if there's any other ones out right now. But we haven't seen an HTC device. HTC has no phones or tablets with, well, no tablets obviously, but no phones with 3 gigs of RAM at all. So that won't be too surprising, but I will be surprised if Google lets them buy on the next version with only 2 gigs.
I agree.
Especially if it's running the same version of Android if it's going to come out with L the same way that the new Nexus will, that'll be surprising.
It should. That's typically how they do that thing.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, we have a question for you.
Oh, yeah?
It says, this is from Cooper Lee. It says, okay, Tony, what's wrong with 2 gigs of RAM? He said he's never had problems with 1 gig of RAM, and 2 is more than enough. Why is 3 becoming a necessity? And he thanks the rest of us for laughing at Tony.
They are laughing at me, Cooper. They are laughing
we laugh at them all the time, even when we're not on the show.
But here's what it is. I don't know what you do on the phone all the time, but the last device that I reviewed with 1 gig of RAM, I'm sorry, not the last one, the first device I reviewed with 1 gig of RAM, the Blue Life Pure Mini, 1 gig actually was not enough. It was enough for my day-to-day normal stuff, but then by the time, because first of all, if you close apps on your Android phone, you're not using Android the way it's meant to be used. Android is meant to be used quick and smooth, and it doesn't. If you have a device that slows down because a lot of apps are running, you just need to buy a nicer device. Now, obviously, not everybody has that option. I know that. I do know that some people, there is a need in a market for lower-end devices, and I do get that. So everything that I say and think comes from the perspective of someone who is willing to spend and has the ability to spend the amount that I need to get like the best phone available. But when I used a 1 gig device, without closing any of my open applications, I was unable to upload a photo to, like, I think it was artscow. Oh yeah, here's what it was. I was creating this on artscow.com, and I just wanted to upload this Android photo so that
What
I
is
could
that?
It's just this mouse pad.
A what?
It's a mouse pad.
Jeez. You
yeah.
talk about 3 gigs of RAM and you still run on a mouse pad?
Well, yeah, I have to, man. I have a glass desk. I don't have an option. It's an optical mouse, though.
Wow, I hadn't seen one of those since I pulled out a fold-up map. Good for you.
Yeah, I've got this. By the way, this is a, just as an aside, this is a really cool mouse pad. It's just like paper thin. It's like an oversized index card, and this is actually designed for optical mouses, and it's got some kind of a reflective surface, which actually really works well.
Yeah, I've had
as an aside, but anything with the Android logo on it is cool. So.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
So what I was doing was I was just trying to upload the Android logo that I have there to the site. It was using a regular site, and it actually popped up with the notification saying, you don't have enough memory to do this. And the logo is literally 400K, maybe. Right. So it's not giving me enough memory to move around to get this thing uploaded to the website. And that is when I decided I will never own a device with 1 gig of RAM for my personal device. So knowing that 2 gigs is the absolute lowest I would ever purchase, it's not acceptable for me to see all these current flagship devices. Now, this has been a year. All these current flagship devices coming out, and they still only have 2 gigs. And here's what it is. You just can't call yourself a flagship if you don't have as much RAM and as good of options as the other flagship devices. Sorry. So when I see these, I see the LG G3 come out with 3 gigs of RAM, and the OnePlus One come out with 3 gigs of RAM, and even things like the Blue Life Pure XL come out with 3 gigs of RAM. It seems really lazy and greedy for companies like Samsung and HTC and other high-end companies come out with their flagship phone that MSRP is at $600 to $700 and only has 2 gigs of RAM. And for Samsung, it's extremely greedy because they already even had a 3 gig device when they brought the S5 out. They had the Note 3, which had 3 gigs of RAM, and they brought out the S5, which still had 2. So I have a personal vendetta against anyone who's willing to bring out a device and call it a flagship and at 2 gigs of RAM, because it's not, even though it may be the flagship for your company, it's not worthy to be called a flagship if it's not on par with the other flagships available.
Passion from Tony. Goodness.
Yeah, but okay. So
we're gonna blur into our topic here too.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit. I will agree with you on the 1 gig. Yeah, you can't use it. 2, however, I do think is enough, and I think it can be considered a flagship. And when the M8 and the S5 came out, the G3 wasn't out, and the OnePlus wasn't out yet.
Yeah, that's true.
So there was nothing out with 3 gigs of RAM.
Nope, the Note 3.
The Note 3. Which, I mean, let's face it, the Note 3 has kind of always been like the next generation phone. It is,
Yeah, the Note's always pushed the bar.
The high end is going to use. And I still, I had the G3, which has 3 gigs. Let me tell you what, even with 3 gigs, that thing's a piece of crap. But
that's the 801.
Yeah. But M8, 2 gigs, Moto X, 2 gigs, I haven't had a single issue with them. And I don't close anything.
Well, and we won't have issues with them, but my thing, I take the same issue with this 2 gig issue. The reason I'm so passionate about these things is because I take the same issue with it as I take with anyone buying the Moto X and saying, oh, well, I just don't need it to be good specs. It's like anyone using an iPhone saying, oh, specs aren't important. It's just the UI and the UX. Like, yeah, well, it works well. But for the iPhone, that's all you need, because it's always, you can't change anything about it. So it's going to work well unless you really mess it up. But for Android, if I bought a Moto X, if I spent my money on a Moto X, I would not end up happy with it, because even though the software they give you works really well with the hardware they give you, because you are shooting yourself in the foot with the hardware. If you decide, hey, you know what, screw this, I'm going to go to CyanogenMod, and you go to CyanogenMod, it's not going to work nearly as well as any of the other flagship devices because of the hardware. That hardware is not there, and you want it's a sad but true fact. The developers who are developing for aftermarket ROMs and stuff like that don't have the ability to develop as perfectly to that hardware as the developers who work for the company. You know, like we were talking about last week, CyanogenMod gets down to the bottom lowest level with the kernel and everything with the OnePlus because they have access. Not everybody has that access. So when you're going aftermarket, you want to have the absolute highest end, beefiest specs you can. Otherwise, it's just not going to work as well as it could. And that's because of my love for Android and modding. I cannot ever condone buying the lower end version, because if you're already going for a high end device, now if you're going for a cheap device, do it by all means. Like, if you need a cheap device, get last generation's flagship. But if you're willing to pay for a high-end device, you need to just get the highest-end device available.
All right, fair enough. But you do speak about the OnePlus One, so let me seg right into that. We're giving away 3 OnePlus One invites. How about that?
All right.
Let me lighten the mood. Tony, you're looking angry. Take a sip of Joe. And, relax, baby. I'm in my pajamas. If you're watching live or later on YouTube, you get to enjoy my pajamas. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm sorry. Let me describe my beautiful blue striped pajamas to you. These are my favorite pajamas I've had forever. So if you're not able to watch, I apologize that you're not able to see this bearded sexy in my pajamas. Get right back on topic. We do have 3 OnePlus One invites to give away live on the show. We'll draw those names tonight. So if you want a OnePlus One invite, go ahead and hit us up in the Q&A or in the YouTube comment section, and we'll get you entered to win. So that shampoo, hopefully next Friday Shamu, we'll have some really awesome stuff to talk about next week. Yeah, okay. I give it a hard time because I don't buy any of the leaks and any of the rumors I've seen. I just don't. I know we don't have time to talk about it because I want to talk about my bed. I don't buy any of them. That Moto S that's been rumored, or it's some other phone that was in development that somebody's got. I don't know. I just don't buy it. We'll see what happens on 15th. I may have to eat my hat, but let's move right along. Tony has a I hate to go right back to Tony. He still seems upset, but I'm not upset. Maybe this is the perfect time to ride back into it. Tony has been wanting to do this roundtable for a while, and I'm glad you're able to be a part of it with us tonight. It is your bed. I keep saying it backwards. Your phone is like a bed. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Tony. Tony, you run this thing. I'm going to sit back in my pajamas and enjoy it. Let me grab my bed-sized phone, which is, by the way, it is Halloween themed. It is a purple Sony Ultra Z with a black D-brand skin back and a orange front.
Looks good.
And so I'm excited about that phone. So Tony, with all due respect, sir, please go right ahead with my phone is like a bed.
All right, so here's the deal with if you've been wondering, kind of seeing our posts and seeing the event page, and you've been wondering, and if you follow me, you've probably heard this before, because I totally believe that your cell phone, especially smartphones, but cell phone in general, is like a bed. And let me start by asking, who wants to answer a question for me here? Which one? Okay, Alvie, when you're in your almost 40s now. You've probably bought new beds at least once in your life, right?
Yes.
What do you do when you go to buy a bed?
Well, I'm kind of geeky, but here's what I've done. I actually bought mine online. I've got a Sleep Number bed. And let me tell you why I've got a Sleep Number. Because my wife, and I just name drop Sleep Number. If you want to go ahead and send me my check, that's fine. I'll send you my address in DM. We've got a Sleep Number bed with 2 zones. Because she likes the bed almost deflated, seriously, like it's like this far from the box springs. And me, I like it almost as hard as a board. So we actually did buy it online, but because we knew we could self-adjust. But I have been to plenty and answer your question, what I usually have done in the past with other beds, first thing I do is go lay on them.
Yeah. And so you go into the store. You don't talk to the salesman first. In fact, most bed stores, they won't even come up and talk to you when you first walk in because they want you to gravitate towards what looks best for you, and they don't want you to know the prices until you've started looking at what you have. So what you do is you go in and you lay on the bed to see if it's comfortable. If it's not comfortable, are you going to buy that bed? No. So my point is, the reason a phone is like a bed is because when you're shopping for a bed, you would never walk into the store, even if you're on a budget. You would not walk into the store and say, well, I know I want a bed that's blue, and I've heard that LG makes a pretty good bed, so give me the cheapest blue LG bed in queen size that you have. No, you wouldn't do that. Because that's not the way to find a bed, because you know that when you buy a bed, you're deciding basically how well you want to sleep for the next 5-10 years, however long you have the bed, maybe more.
Right.
You're deciding how well you want to sleep, which is deciding how well you want to function in life. So you're going to be sleeping on this bed for a third of your life for the time that you own the bed. A third.
Right.
Let's talk about the phone batteries we brag about all the time, that we're constantly trying to one-up each other on battery. I think I might still be winning, but I'm not sure. So my OnePlus One, I've gotten 16 hours off the charger, and the highest was like 16 hours off the charger and almost 9 hours of screen on time, meaning I was looking at the phone for almost 9 hours out of the day. 9 hours. That's longer than I sleep. And on average, I probably look at the phone between 4 and 5 hours on any given day. High times I go, it's 6-7 hours, but other times, lower 3 hours. But at least 3 hours out of the day, I'm looking at this phone, at the very least. That's a lot of time to be looking at something that doesn't work well or that just frustrates you. I know anybody who owns a cheap phone, it's not that it just doesn't work well. It's not that they don't use it. It's every time they look at it, every time they have to interact with it, it frustrates them, and they hate it, and it ruins their day. Like, it literally, and then I end up, having to talk to them like, yeah, well, this is what happens, and this is why you can't do this. It's like a bed. You have to spend the money on it. You have to put the money into it because you're deciding how happy you want to be when you interact with that phone at any given time. So, on that note, we have some budget options. We have some very, very expensive options. If you're on a contract, for most people in the U.S., if you're on a contract and you don't have a upgrade, buying a flagship phone at $500 to $700 is probably not an option for you. We understand that, but you still have to put the money in. Otherwise, you're choosing to basically have a very, very frustrating time every time you use your phone for the next 2 years or however long you have to keep that phone, which is probably 2 years if you don't have the ability to just buy one whenever you want. So I've gotten through my rant about why a phone is like a bed. Now let's talk about what happens when you say, okay, who here recently? Okay, Fred. Fred, you're actually the perfect person for this because you just reviewed last week's show the HTC Desire 610, is it 510? 510. HTC Desire 510, which on the face of it looks like this would be a perfect option for people who are on a budget and on a prepaid phone. But tell us what happens, what in your opinion happens when people especially people who haven't had a smartphone, try out a cheap device like the HTC Desire 510.
Well, the HTC, the Desire 510 was, as Tony said, this was a phone that I really wanted to like as a budget phone, and we talked about it last week right after Joe reviewed the Lumia 635, was it? I think, yep. Which actually did a good job, and this one had very similar specs, low end, 512 meg of RAM. It did have a quad core, not an 801. I think it was a Snapdragon 400 or 4 something. But spec-wise, it should have worked except for one fatal flaw, which was that one of their cost-cutting measures, obviously, was to cut down internal storage to 4 gigabytes. And on this phone, that was it just rendered it completely useless. What was pre-installed on the phone, completely clean, was approximately 3 gigabytes, 3.1. So you're left with 1 gigabyte of usable space. And by the time people connect that to your Gmail account or whatever email account you're using, connect it to your photos, download a few things that you've got in the cloud, run a few apps, within a day or two, and this really wasn't putting it through rigorous testing, within a day or two, the phone was clogged up, basically. There was no more room to install another app, and even putting in an SD card, which the OEM did not provide, the carrier did not provide. It opened up some space, but not too much, because again, the system memory was just clogged with bloat and gunk that was pre-installed. So now take an entry-level user, but let's put ourselves in the position of an entry-level user who has not used a smartphone before, either saved up their money or got this phone on a contract. Is probably going to find within a week or two of the stuff that they're trying to do, install a few apps, take some pictures, that before they know it, this thing is going to be unusable. And I think in that case, I think they've done a disservice to Android, because what's going to happen there is that people will be blaming it on Android and the Android OS, and I think in that case, you're going to have people either suffering through their experience with the phone, deciding that they're not technically capable enough to work with it, or simply deciding that, hey, Android is not that easy to manage, and bump up to iOS, where unfortunately there's not an inexpensive budget iOS device, simply because it works well right out of the box. So in that case, you have to say that on paper, this phone should have looked good. If you looked at it in the store and tried it, it would probably be good. A sales pitch on it would probably make it look really good. But without taking it and test driving it and spending some time with it, you don't really know what you're getting into. So I guess in that case, we're back to where Tony is. You're spending a certain amount of your lifetime with this, and it's got to be a usable experience.
Yeah, and that's exactly the truth. So trust me, look, the Snapdragon, almost all of Snapdragon's processors are 100% usable. You said it was the Snapdragon 400. You're pretty sure?
I can double check that while we're on here.
Yeah, please do. Now I had the Lenovo Yoga Tablet 10 HD Plus. Now the 10 HD Plus tablet had a Snapdragon 400 processor in it, and I played what's the racing game? Need for Speed. Whatever the most popular Need for Speed game is on the Android market. I think it's Most Wanted. I played this game, and it was flawless on the Lenovo, and the Lenovo's even got a little bit of a skin. They're not 100% stock Android, so they've got their own skin that they're dealing with. And on a tablet, a 10-inch tablet with a 1080p screen, that Snapdragon 400 is still performing admirably. So there's things you can do, and there's corners you can cut, and there's corners you can't, I guess. And trying to load up a device with a skin like Sense was probably an issue. Mm-hmm. But even though there may have been that phone may have been usable in other circumstances, because if you bought that phone expecting it to be usable, and another thing, if you've used any of HTC's other devices, I know people who swear by their One M7, who say their One M7 is the best device they've ever used, and they don't want to have to change, and because they just did it right, because it's a flagship. And so if you heard, say you heard a person heard their son or daughter talking about their One M7 and thought, well, I'll just get an HTC because I know they're good, and then buys this device that's horrible without trying it out, without asking someone who's used it, or without reading reviews, they're going to have a really bad experience because they didn't test it out first. They didn't put the money behind it that they need to. So when you're buying, and the other part of the bed metaphor is when you're buying a bed, even if you're on a budget, you're going to spend what you need to get the bed that's comfortable.
Well, and going along with your bed metaphor here, we've talked about the expensive and the cheap, but at the same time, you could have 4 different expensive beds, but like you said, it's got to be the bed that's right for you. I mean, so in the course of probably the last 2 weeks, I've gone through, about 4 different phones. I've had the G2. I've had the M8. I've got the Moto X sitting back here, and I just sent the G3 out this morning to someone who bought it. So the G2 is last year's flagship. G3 is technically a flagship this year. The M8 is a flagship this year, and the Moto X is a flagship this year. So I've got 3 flagship phones this year. Moto X, loved it, but battery life was an issue for me. For the average user, battery life is probably fine. For me, battery life isn't. And the same it goes along with your bed metaphor. Someone probably laughed because Alvie has a sleep number. Well, I've got a sleep number as well, and honestly, I can't sleep on a normal bed anymore. And it's for some people. It might not be for some people. I know some people hate the sleep number bed. So it goes right along with your metaphor. The Moto X for some people is going to be an amazing phone. And if it had a bigger battery, for me it would have been an amazing phone. But now I've gone back to my M8, which I've had now for 6 months, and it helps that HTC just sent me a brand new one. I've used it. I know it works. It's awesome, and I'll keep using it until the next thing comes out that I think is better.
And that's true. So what I've kind of arrived at is there's been a lot of people who have had issues with these low-end phones. But I will tell you what, when you get somebody who really puts the screws to a new phone, and then gets a device like a Samsung Galaxy S5, they probably aren't even going to be happy with the S5 or devices, any of Samsung's range of phones running TouchWiz, just because of the kind of lag that you get involved with TouchWiz. I mean, if you've been on a Nexus phone, I can almost guarantee you will never be able to go back to a Samsung phone with a Samsung skin. So it is a lot about the user and what the user is going to prefer. But still, the underlying point remains that if you choose to buy a budget device, if you choose to buy a cheap device, not just a budget device, but a cheap device, you're just asking you're just asking for a really bad night's sleep, basically.
Well, it's interesting too, like with the whole cheap thing. You've also got kind of more recently this whole separate category devices that have more of a cheaper price tag, like the unlocked price, but then you've got things like the OnePlus One or the Nexus 5 or even the Moto G, which are price-wise can be considered pretty cheap, but they still offer a pretty good experience for most users. Now, they're not perfect smartphones in any regards, but they're really solid. So then you've also got, I don't know, maybe like the big sale on the bed or something where you can spend a lot of money and get a really nice bed, or you've got the always cheap phones and the really low-end devices or the low-end beds that aren't good, but they also have this kind of third category we've been seeing more recently where it's still a cheaper price, but you're not getting really that bad of a deal either. So it's kind of that third category to look out for, too.
Well, I mean, yeah, because that's what, a lot of it, I guess, is how do we get people the information that they need? Like, we all are we keep up, finger on the pulse of all this stuff. So I know that my Sony phone, it's perfect for me and it will be for a while. But that's because I know it. But when people go out there to get I guess the best way to word this, on contract it's $200 to get a Galaxy S5 flagship phone. So when people go to replace their phone because they broke it or whatever reason, they're out of contract, they finally listened into that part of it, they go buy a new $200 phone. Like, and the values are completely different. They don't understand that it's subsidized and that you're actually paying for it over time, blah, blah, blah. Right. And because, a friend of mine, she's got a terrible, terrible phone that she spent $200 on because she shattered her S5. So she was over at the house, she goes, I need something better. And so for the exact same price, you can get so many different phones. Like, beds in general, you can go sit down there and lay on them, feel them exactly what you're getting. Phones aren't that way. And I guess how do we make our phones like a bed in that way that people know what they're getting. Like, what's important? It's important to Chuck to get a battery. It's important to me to get size because I'm big. It's important to Tony to get the specs. He needs his 3 gigs of RAM. You know, most people don't know what's important to them. They just know what they've been told is important. And I guess, how do we share that information? How do we get that out?
You know, that's where we come in. That's where people like us, because like the one thing you left out, Alvie, is, and most of our viewers probably know this, but you say, you know, you knew what you needed, and so you bought it. But you left out the fact that, oh yeah, you can't buy this in the U.S., so, well, you can't buy this from a carrier anyway.
Right.
So what you had to do was you had to go find somebody who you could buy this phone from because it's not on a carrier. Because
this
was what you needed.
From out of this country, you're exactly right.
Yeah. So where people, me and Fred and Joe and Alvie and I'm sure Chuck, and even though you don't have a specific medium other than here to do this through, is where we come in is we suffer through the way Fred did. We suffer through the week of using a phone that is just awful for our uses because we want to be able to come in here and say, you know what, it was a valiant effort and you can tell they really tried, but this phone really misses the mark. Don't buy this phone. Just like I've done with several other people.
Well, and I guess my encouragement to those that are listening on the podcast and watching us live and watching us later, be available to your friends and family. Mm-hmm. I know it's easy for us to get frustrated with all of our people always asking us for tech support for free. And it does. It gets overwhelming at times. But my parents, I've mentioned this a million times, they went out and they bought what they thought was a really nice phone because of the price, and it was a terrible phone. They were completely unsatisfied with it because, and I've never, or at least try not to be like standoffish with them, but just so they didn't bother me or what they thought was bothering me, to ask what phone to get or what tablet to get. You know, and kudos to them for trying to do it on their own, but there's plenty of friends and family in our circle of influence that don't know as much as we do. Not bragging or anything. We just stay on top of it, and they don't. So be available and kind of offer your services, for lack of a better term. You know, if you're interested in a phone, let them know to come talk to you, because for the most part, us techie people, we know how to research. Like, I didn't know a certain Sprint phone, but I know who to ask for a Sprint phone. You know, I don't know who to ask for a certain tablet, but I know who to I don't know a certain tablet, but I know who to ask for a certain tablet. So stay available and stay open to people, and don't sound like you're frustrated when they keep asking you for it, I guess is my polite way to say that.
It's like funny too, because sometimes I'll be reviewing a phone or something. I try to kind of put my mind in, I don't like using this term, but kind of like the normal consumer, because like you said, we're around this technology all day. We're constantly reading about what the latest news is. I'm constantly getting devices in all the time, pretty much one every week from a company to review. So our mindset is completely different from someone who's going out there and buying a phone on 2-year contract, because they look at that price like you mentioned, Alvie. They say $200. I tell my friends, you know, that my OnePlus One cost me $349, and they say, well, I got my phone for $99 on Verizon or something. So they don't realize that, yeah, your phone costs $99, which is a subsidized price, when really you're going to probably pay $600 for it. But like we also said too, there's no real way to really get a feel for a phone. I mean, you can go into Best Buy, any carrier store, and you can play with a phone for 10, 20 minutes, but that's still not a real representation of how it's going to go through daily life. You don't get an idea for battery life. You can look at the display and kind of get an idea for how it moves through the UI, but a lot of the times they're demo units, you're limited to what you can do, and you really don't get a full experience of what you can get. So I know if anyone in my family, they go out and buy a phone, I'm like, either I'll go with you or you tell me what you're looking for and I'll help you pick something out. I don't say, oh, you're going to get this and you're going to like it. But, I mean, like I said, the mindset's just so different. They're going to see something, they're going to see the cheapest price, they're going to go for it. So I know I try to make myself available to them with phones and really technology in general. But like I said, we got to make ourselves available, like you said, and also the consumers, people we know, they need to do the research online before going out and making an impulse buy or asking us to, because it really, right now, with all the choices we have from Apple, definitely Samsung, HTC, all these different phones out there, different operating systems, it can be really confusing. Just a normal consumer who's maybe buying their first smartphone, or they maybe had a smartphone before, even if you've had multiple have had smartphones in the past, it is really still a very confusing market to know. It's cheap, but is it bad? This phone is cheap too, but is it going to be better than this one? This one's expensive. Do I really need to spend this much money? So it is a really convoluted market, and it's just something that we kind of gotta help each other out with in those purchasing decisions.
Good point. Good point.
Well, to bring this all kind of to a head, I think my biggest recommendation, the thing that I use when someone wants to know, oh, well, I want to buy a phone, I don't want to upgrade my contract, so I want to get a used phone or a new phone, but I want to buy it, outright. What's a good phone that I don't have to spend $500 on? Your best bet, if you don't know how to, what their usage is going to be, or whether they prefer Samsung or HTC or a more stock Android experience, your best bet's going to be to say, well, first of all, what have you used, and second of all, which do you gravitate towards any manufacturer? And if they do, I would always recommend maybe the last season's flagship. So if someone came to me right now saying, Tony, I want to spend less than $200 on a phone. What's a good phone I can have for less than $200? I'd probably say, if I knew they were the type to root or something, I'd probably say Galaxy S3 or HTC One M7, something like that. But if not, then I might go with any of the Motorola devices right now are really good, like the Moto G, Moto E. Any of those I'd probably go for if they don't have high-end needs. If they don't have like a lot of games and stuff. But still, so just be aware of what you're saying, and don't ever say, oh yeah, you can get this. Let's see, where is it? Oh, it's in the other room. Don't ever recommend anyone buy a device from a manufacturer that you've never heard of. One. Don't ever recommend anyone buy a device from a manufacturer that you've heard of but never used. If you've never used a phone from the manufacturer, you can't recommend it because they're gonna end up really disappointed in what you said. Your best bet is to go a generation back to find a phone that used to MSRP at $500 because that's going to be a good phone. Basically.
Yeah, actually, it's a funny story on that. Sorry, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, the only thing I want to say is that a little caveat here is that it's easy for people who are handling a lot of phones, buying and selling a lot of phones, demoing a lot of phones, as I do, to say turn back and use a year ago's technology. But keep in mind, Tony, people are buying that potentially on a 2-year contract from Verizon or AT&T. They're going to be locked in long past that phone reaches its obsolescence, long after the time that they're not going to be able to either install the latest system upgrade or the latest version of whatever apps they need to run as they get into the point where the phone becomes 2 and 3 years old. So there's a little bit of a catch on that one. But
in my experience, though, because I can go back and install KitKat on any of the Galaxy S devices, and I have 1, 2, 3, and we have a 4 because my wife has one. So I have all 4 of those, and you can put a KitKat ROM on any of them. Now that's because I know I can do it. So generally, people who are doing that, they're going to know that they should go for the best phone. And back then, I wasn't sure that I would be getting the next Galaxy S or the next one. I wasn't sure how long I'd have to wait for a phone. Now I'm at a pretty good point where I'm sure that I can resell my phone and make at least enough to get me to the next one without spending too much money or any at all. But you are right. Yeah, you should watch out if they're going to be staying stock. They really should. It is important to make sure that you're going to have a new version of Android when it's needed.
Yeah,
that's a good point, Fred.
A good story about that. Actually, my wife's dad is looking to get a new phone. Now he's still got an old flip phone, and what he actually, older generation. So what he actually wanted, he wants a phone with a keyboard, but he doesn't want a data plan, which, interestingly enough, on the major carriers is impossible to find.
Yeah.
However, what I've actually recommended, and the phone he's actually going to get, is the Moto E on Republic Wireless, because he has Sprint right now, and he's happy with the service for the voice calls. So I said it's the same network as you already have, so you don't have to worry about, hey, especially him, hey, I used to be able to make a phone call here, but now I can't anymore. So he knows where he can and can't make phone calls, which he says basically anywhere he goes. But $10 a month, He's going to get a phone that he can make unlimited phone calls. He can do his text messaging, which is what he wants. It has a keyboard. Now, he wanted a physical keyboard, but that's impossible these days. So, he said software keyboard, okay. But he's getting the Moto E because it's $100.
Yeah.
He doesn't want data, doesn't care about data. And he's not going to install any apps on the phone. So the Moto E, while it's a cheap phone, is absolutely perfect for him because he can make phone calls and he can text message and he can take pictures with it, but he'll do nothing else with it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, very interesting. And I mean, kind of just to tag on to what we've all been saying, Tony, you say that for a bed, the salespeople don't mess with you till you've laid down, pretty much till you start to get back up from the first or second bed. Like, Chuck, what you're talking about, you talk to your dad and listen to him. What does he actually need? He needs that, and you got him to it. So and that's what we've got to do. I've recommended, I'm Android fanboy, but I have recommended iPhones before to people that I know that it'd be perfect for. Don't be so, especially fanboyish. We like to, Android is the only thing that you should ever use. And guys, I hate Windows, but for people, I've recommended Windows machines just because I know that that's what they need and that's perfect for them. So, I don't know, just be a little more open-minded, or like Mr. Cooper says, be nice to the Dino parents and friends. Like it. And closing thoughts before we go into our little giveaway and final thoughts about Tony. Final thoughts for your phone as a bed.
Well, basically, the reason this has been bouncing in my head for years, and I've mentioned this on prior, or for months now, I've mentioned this on prior episodes, is that I wrote an article a while back called "Why Never to Just Go with the Free One," because that was the phrase everyone was going to use. Well, what phone you're going to get when you upgrade? I'm just going to go with the free one.
Right.
Well, with smartphones, with dumb phones, that doesn't matter unless you need a durable phone. But with smartphones, that does matter. And my article back then was comparing the specs of the high-end device at the time, Galaxy Nexus, to the low-end device, and then the specs of the free phone compared to the G1, the original Android phone, in which case most of the time the G1 actually beat out the specs of the free phone. So, but I realized recently that was the wrong approach to take in conversation with anyone who actually could understand it, or with anyone who would need to hear this conversation, because anyone who would need to hear this conversation isn't going to understand what those specs mean. So I just wanted to. That's why I came up with a phone is like a bed, because it is so important. There's things you need to question. What can your phone do? Or I'm sorry, what do you need to be able to do with your phone during the day, every day? And what do you need your phone to do for you every day? So, for instance, mine's my alarm clock. I can't have a phone that I'm worried is going to freeze up during the night and not wake me up in the morning. So, you have to take those things into account. You can't just go out and say, this is the cheapest thing available, because if you're on a budget where you have to go through and say this is the cheapest thing available, I'm not judging you, but you probably don't need a smartphone, because you can just leave the internet at home. If you're on that big of a budget, get yourself a cheap phone and pay as little a month as you can, and then save up for the smartphone that you want eventually. But if you do buy a cheap phone, just know that's what you're getting. If you get the free phone or the cheap phone, know that is the quality you're going to get. So I don't want to take any more time. We're at the hour mark now, or maybe a little bit under the hour mark. But that was my idea for the week. And as techies, and I'm sure most of you who are watching and then listening later on the podcast know that as techies, you do have a responsibility to people who ask you, because you know. And I know it's a responsibility none of us asked for, but it's because we have the for lack of a better term right now, the RTFM attitude, which is read the effing manual. If everyone read the manual, then nobody would need IT. We would not need IT, because everybody would be able to find the answers themselves. I remember my dad telling me that one of his jobs, he specifically got his job because he went and sat at someone's desk when they couldn't print or do something and started clicking through the help screens. Now, that's not to say he wasn't already good with computers, but that's all he needed to do. And they were like, oh, you're indispensable. You need to be here, because he was the only person who was willing to read the help. So being the only people in our society who do this, we do have a responsibility to those people around us to let them know. So, without any further ado, we need to do a drawing. We have three of these OnePlus One invites, courtesy of Cooper Lee. So I want to thank you, Cooper Lee. He's donated the OnePlus One invites to us. We really appreciate it. So it looks like I think they have to be claimed within the day. I'm not sure, but if we don't have 3 people who want to claim them right now, we'll try to get them out to you. So leave comments on the YouTube video, and we will try to respond and get them. So I guess maybe the first 3 commenters, but if anyone wants one right now, let us know, because I don't think we're going to have 3 people who are able to claim. And once you claim them, you have 1 day to buy the device. So it's $350. So we'll be watching the Q&A right now. And
yeah, while that's going on, let everybody plug their stuff, Tony. So you guys keep an eye on that kind of stuff. Chuck, what's going on for you this week?
What is going on with me this week? Well, I guess normal work, but going to a very exciting pumpkin patch with the kids and the family tomorrow. We have a pumpkin patch near us. It's kind of, I guess you call it commercialized, but you go in there, they've got rides and pumpkin carving and a big, pumpkin food stand and all kinds of stuff for the kids to do. So probably spending all day tomorrow there.
Oh, fun. Sounds like a winner to me. I'll be there soon. I like those kinds of things. Back from the dead, Fred. What's going on for you this week, bud?
Hey, more of the same. I got still have some goodies here to review. The LG G3 Vigor is here. I have not reviewed that yet. And by the way, this may be a viable response to your question. This may be a viable budget model for your friend who's looking for a $200 range phone, which I think is right about where this one
okay, good.
falls. Yeah, and maybe it's a little more than that, but so far I like it, but I haven't given it a real intensive study yet. I've been I had 3 phones land here at the same time, the 2 HTCs and then this one, so it's taken me a while to sort through this one. I've got some camera accessories coming. This just landed, a really nice camera bag from Tiffin, which I'll be playing around with, and I think they've got some action accessories, a device called a Curve, which is a camera mount for action shots, extreme photos, and that sort of thing, which is on its way here as well. So I'll be running that through the paces over the next week or so.
Good, man. You got a bunch of stuff going on over there. That'll keep you busy for a few weeks, won't it?
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. All right, Mobile Cup of Joe. How are you over there? What you got going on this week, bud?
Well, I am lovely, Bearded Barista, and I've got quite a lot of stuff coming. I was talking with you guys about it earlier. Hopefully sometime early next month. I don't know if anyone out there has heard of it. LD West, they make this smartphone holster thing, so basically you strap it over your back and you've got a holster for a wallet and a smartphone, so should be getting one of those in early next week. And quick plug for them, if anyone wants to check it out and go to their website, if you enter their promo code in all caps, get LD West, you can actually get 10% off, which is not a bad deal off a $120 product, so if you want to do that, go check that out. I've got, hopefully, the HTC One, either the Remix or the M8 for Windows coming from Verizon sometime soon. Still waiting on the Moto X and the Galaxy Alpha from AT&T, and the Sony Xperia Z3V, which will be coming from Verizon hopefully soon as well. And some Lenovo tablets should be coming next month too, so not a lot right now. I do have my review for the Lumia 635, which I talked about last show on here. For a review for that will be going up on the channel probably Monday or Tuesday of this next week. And I got these headphones. They are the Audio-Technica ATH MX M30X, and I don't know anything about headphones or audio, but I will be covering those here on the channel as well. So far, really been loving them, so not a whole lot right now, but within the next couple weeks should be a lot of videos going up on the channel.
Cool, excellent, excellent. All right, Tony, talk to me. What's going on for you, and then tell me about some of this drawing, this giveaway.
All right. Well, what's going on with me is right now we're in the terminal stages of my wife's pregnancy. So right now we're kind of just watching how things are going, see if she'll go early, see if she'll go over, but basically just waiting, and it's our first one. So we're just really excited and overreacting occasionally at every little thing. So it will be it's been very fun though to learn those things, and it'll be that's pretty much what life is right now, is working in that. What I've got going on for the next week, I will be. I think I made the joke earlier. I will be getting some. I'll need to be ordering food in basically, and starting Wednesday of next week, I will be at home doing nothing but working for 3 days straight as the other admins go to the Big Android barbecue. I won't be able to go this year, but so. It's actually better for the site because I will be at home and able to take up the slack when everybody's has to travel, and I'll be on the site for pretty much 24 hours a day for the duration of the barbecue, and with occasional areas of relief when they're able to hop on. But it will be a very interesting time. Last year, I actually traveled a day earlier than everyone so that I could be working at the barbecue while everybody was traveling the next day. So I wish I could make it, guys, this year. I actually just talked to Aaron and Corey and them today. They talked a lot about the stuff that's going on at the barbecue. It sounds so exciting. I really wish I could make it, but I'm just needed here right now. So I definitely will be seeing you guys next year. If you're going to the Big Android barbecue and you're watching this, be sure to stop by the Swap-A booth, say hey, and scan their tag and get a Swap-A pin. They're going to have some really cool collectible pins this year, and all of the or a lot of the actual sponsors for the barbecue will have those too. So that's going to be fun. But basically, barbecue news, and I've got my group on Sundays that I've been leading, but just my technology interest group for my church. So that's been the majority of my life recently, and we have one person who popped up, and Sahil again. Sahil, we're gonna get. I sent you an invite already. I hope you're able to use it. I know last week it was kind of a disappointment because you weren't able to win the Win HD just due to the shipping issues. But I will go ahead and say we forgot to do this live. Congratulations to Juan Sanchez, who was our second pick after we found out we couldn't ship to Sahil. So congratulations on winning that blue Win HD. Sahil, I shot your invitation code that way. And we have 2 left. So I will talk to the person, to Cooper, and see if he knows exactly how long they have to expire. But don't hold back. Throw a comment on the video. Throw a comment on the YouTube page, on the event page. Somewhere, let us know. We have 2 left, so the first 2 commenters will get them. We're really excited, guys, and I hope a couple other people can get to enjoy this phone.
Yeah, me too. Excellent. Thanks for all that. And so that's it. That wraps up our What's Brewing for this week. On behalf of Chuck, Fred, Joe, Tony, and myself, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for checking us out on the podcast. If you're checking us out later, just thanks for checking us out. We appreciate it. We really wouldn't and couldn't do it without you guys. It'd just be us hanging out. So thanks for being a part of What's Brewing. But be sure to leave a comment down below if you're watching the video, or send us something on G+ or Twitter or anything like that if you're checking it out, the audio. And let us know what you guys want to see us and hear us talk about on the next episode of What's Brewing. As far as something coming up, let me tease you a little bit. We have a very special Halloween episode coming for you guys. More details on that coming soon, but I cannot wait to share that with you guys. So Halloween episode coming soon. Thanks so much for watching tonight. And with that being said, good night.